day, and welcome to Realist News. I'm going to start off with something known as Timewave 0. And Timewave 0 was created by a guy by the name of Terrence McKenna. He finalized the math and programming of this program sometime around 1993. But he made this program designed off of the Chinese I Ching, which is I Ching, the letter I, C-H-I-N-G. Sounds like, or looks like I Ching, but it's actually I Ching. Thing's been around for several thousand years, and it's 64 bits by 64 bits, and it's one of those things where you can, I think you slide the little things across the line and certain patterns or something. I'm not too sure. And people of ancient times, especially in China, using that, would make predictions and prophecy out of this thing with quite interesting, I guess, accuracy, you could say, by using this tool. But anyway, so he decides, well, if it's 64-bit by 64-bit or whatever, if it's a 64-bit hexagram, whatever this thing is, I could put it into a computer program. We have computers nowadays, and I'd like to see what kind of charts I could put out with this thing, and have the computing power to show, to pop out a chart. So he builds this program, and there's like 3 or 4 different mathematical calculations by experts that say, well, we think this was the one that is most accurate to the I Ching, and well, we think this is one that's a little more accurate. So there's a couple slight variations. They're really very close if you look at the charts. Like this is a small one that you're gonna see on the board behind me in a minute. And basically, I'll go ahead and do that now. Basically, over on this side, you're going to see the first chart is basically January 2009, and you'll see it starts up here at the top, kind of goes down, then goes back up, kind of goes down, then back up, and then this big downfall, then back up, then up and down all over the place, all the way to the end. This starts at 2009, January 2009, ends on December 21st, 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar. Now, the interesting thing is that the I Ching, with its calculations, also, via this software, show that it cannot go past 2012 either. It also ends, so to speak. So what I did with this software is I said, you know what, I wonder if I can find cycles, because I punched in all kinds of dates and ranges, and you don't see a chart like this. It looks different. Every time you put in a different date range, whatever, it looks completely different. Just like you would expect if you looked at a stock chart or something of that nature. So if you look at that in the chart, you get a good look at the pattern. That's January 2009 to December 21st, 2012, end of the Mayan calendar. Many ancient other calendar systems, including the I Ching now. It's a pretty important date for some reason. Yeah, that's for sure. So I'm going to now put on another chart that's very interesting, and it is from November 30th, 2012 to December 21st, 2012. We're talking approximately 21 days. It's the same chart I just showed you. Well, how could that be? Well, I've got a better one. 1883 approximately, the year 1883 to 2009, which is where I started this one, remember 2009? Go back 1883 to 2009, the chart spits out the exact same image, the exact same movements, everything. So I said, oh my God, this is fascinating. How could I have found a spitting image of this? And if you notice, going back from 2012, let's go back to the furthest I went. And I think I put in negative 14,000 or somewhere around there, negative 14,000 as a starting point. In other words, the year minus 14,000 BC. That was the starting point, and then I stopped it at 1883. It's the same image again, the same exact chart. I said, oh my God, what does this mean? This means what a guy by the name of Ian Lungold has said. And he had a theory that this Mayan codex that they found in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle, I think, it was the last known one to exist. And they found it face down in the dirt. They picked it up, took a carbon scrubbing of the front of it after they cleaned it off a little bit so that they could see whatever shape was on there in case the thing deteriorated away after being buried for so long. Good thing they did, because a couple of weeks or so, maybe a couple months later, the thing was in terrible shape, and it did actually disintegrate pretty much. So it was a good thing they got the carbon scrubbing of it so they can put it back on paper and say, okay, this is what it showed. They easily deciphered it based off of the ancient Mayan languages and stuff that they know what the words meant and symbols meant. And basically what he says is there's a stepped pyramid. And I believe there's 7 steps. At the base of the pyramid is the big, big step. The next one is another step a little bit shorter. The next step is another step higher but a little bit shorter, right? Until you get to the top of the pyramid, and then the step's only this long. And what he says is, well, if my calculations are right, the Earth is somewhere, I think he said around 14 billion years old. And if that's true, then each of these sections are divided into 13 pieces, which he called days and nights. And he said, now think about that. Days and nights, where have you heard of that term before? It's in a lot of ancient religion type stuff where there was days and nights. Not literally a day and a night. It's signifying a period of time. So in other words, 1 through 13, day, night of 1, day, night of 2, day, night of 3, day, night of 4, day, night of 5, 6. And then once you get to 7, it's just 1, and then it backs off again and starts over and goes up to the next step of the pyramid. So he's saying, it took a couple, 2, 3 billion years to get all the way through that bottom step from 1 to 13. The next step only took a few million years, because it's the same type of stuff, basically, the same type of evolution, the same type of time-changing events, that kind of thing, being squeezed into a shorter and shorter and shorter amount of time, basically. If that's making sense. I may not be describing it right, but hopefully it makes sense. Then the next step, same thing. And he noticed something interesting. On that 6th day and 6th or 7th, the beginning of the 7th night or 6th day, end of the 6th day and into the 6th night, something like that, there's always, he basically drew a line straight down all of the cycles, which in other words, every single one of the 7 steps, through all the periods of 13 cycles, day, night, day, night, day, night, next step, day, night, day, night, day, night. Well, all the 6 days, he basically said, well, on that 6th day and 6th night, there's always something big that happens. And it doesn't necessarily mean bad. It doesn't necessarily mean, World War III breaks out. Although it could. It doesn't necessarily mean that. And he said, well, here's where we had the Industrial Revolution, here's where we did this, here's where we did that. And it's like, wow, this has got something going on here. It does kind of make sense. Okay. So bottom line is what he calculated, if his calculations are right as far as how old the Earth is, and if using the Earth as a starting point was the right thing to do, he says that every one of these cycles happens 20 times faster than the last time. So I thought to myself, let me look at that old chart, right? Minus 14,000 BC, whatever, to 1883 AD. It looks just like the image I showed you. Take 1883 to 2009, it looks the same. So there's that same cycle, basically. That one I just showed you was 14,000 plus years old. This next cycle from 1883 to 2009 is somewhere around 232 years old. Massive amount of space to put those 13 cycles into. Well, the second to last cycle, from what I understand, we're on right now. And it was only... it was only 19 years long or something like that, and we basically coming to the end of it now. We're fixing to start that 6th night. I don't know if we just started it or it starts at the end of October. It may start the 6th night, I think. May start in either November or the end of October, somewhere around there, I believe. Interesting, because again, we have this chart in November is where the biggest one that falls off the cliff. That biggest one is the biggest move in all of the charts, whether it's the 14,000 plus year old one, the 232 year one, or the one we're on right now, which is 3.5 years long. I found that same cycle from 2009, January, to 2012, December 21st, 2012, approximately 3.5 years long. Because actually I said January, the actual date is around April or May. of 2009, if you want to get precise. So it's about 3.5 years. So I found that. I thought that was interesting. I never heard of that before, never saw it. So I will take a little bit of credit for that, if it even means anything, but whatever. So anyways, remember, the next one after this one we're on, 3.5 years cycle, starts on November 30th, 2012, and lasts 21 days approximately to the end date of 2012, December 21st. In other words, that 20 days, the stuff I just told you about, this 3.5, in other words, whatever just happened over the last 3.5 years, and the 3.5 years really isn't concluded until we get to 2012, basically December 2012 or November 30th. So we're kind of past that halfway point, but not quite. And you can see what's already happened over the last, let's just fast forward and pretend we're in 2012, looking back. And God knows what's going to happen from now until then. As you can see, the whole world's going off a cliff right now. But just what we can look at right now, we had the massive healthcare fraud bill get passed. That has incredible things inside of it that are terrible. That have nothing to do with healthcare. Just amazing. We had TARP fund bailout. We had the Federal Reserve, $2 trillion+ balance sheet. We now have foreclosures being halted by every single foreclosure company you can imagine. We've got the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq. We've got all this crap going on. It's just like so much is happening so fast. Everything is going by so quickly. It's like you can't even keep up with it. Like I said, you can't even retain the stuff in your head. So much is going on. I've got to put stuff in my calendar on my Outlook, create subfolders and folders to put stuff to remind myself later, to remember, because it's important stuff. I mean, things are just basically speeding up. Even though the days aren't speeding up, it's still 24 hours in a day, It's just the stuff that we're being bombarded with and having to deal with, that kind of stuff, is being amplified, basically, so to speak. And interestingly enough, the webbot, when it has some of its powerful dates or whatever, not always, sometimes it has nothing to do with the Timewave 0 report, because you can pull up the chart and say, well, what is this? I don't see anything significant on the Timewave 0, yet something happened and the webbot got it right. This time, it's right on the money with the biggest decline of this chart. And depending on which version, remember I said there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's actually 5 different scientists, or whatever you want to say, that put the Timewave 0 software together based off of the I Ching with their own flavor of physics that say, well, I think mine's closer to right. No, I think mine's closer to the right. Again, they're all very close. So one of these says it started basically second week or so, maybe the end of the first week of July 2010, and now we're going off that cliff, which lasts until almost very close to February 2011. So we're not even at the end yet. We're kind of at the halfway point of this down spike, as you can see in the chart. The other one, which some people say, well, that's the one everyone likes to use, which is known as Watkins, King 1 Watkins, actually says it starts approximately November 8th, 12th, somewhere around there, and then rapidly falls off a cliff and lasts to about February also. So we have a major voting session coming up here that we may end up cleaning house in Congress. And if that happens, the world will actually be fixed based off of our Congress getting kicked out and new people who actually care doing something. Do I think that's going to happen, that enough people will be kicked out to make change? Absolutely not. And again, even though the charts may go down, a big spike up or down, they don't signify, well, down spikes on the chart means bad news, good up means good news. It doesn't work that way. It's just whatever it was doing kind of steadily, and then it does something. That's the kind of thing that says, okay, some kind of big event or something's going to happen within this time frame. And it might not be exactly on the date. It could be slightly after, slightly before. Kind of like 9/11 was I think just before it kind of plateaued. And it didn't hit on the plateau. It actually plateaued and then went over a few days. And then 9/11 hit. And then it fell down a cliff, I think, over there. So it wasn't precisely on that. And again, it also matters which one of these versions you're looking at. But it's close enough. So we got a lot coming, and what they called this, the term he used, Terence McKenna, was that he called it novelty. It signifies novelty. The way I described it to you is probably better than saying, oh, we've got some novelty change coming up. That doesn't really But people are going to say, what the hell does that mean?